Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Well, it is something that we all deal with. Some of us greater degrees than others, and some of us have trouble managing this thing known as anxiety. There's a lot of it going around, even more so as I see and understand since COVID. We're going to talk about that. How can you get support? How can you even navigate through anxious situations in your life? She and her team help others deal with this all the time through an amazing counseling center located in Massachusetts called New Beginnings. And she is the woman behind it, our Diamond of the Decade. Sherri Alexandrovich joins us once again on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. How about yourself?
Very well, very well. I'm so happy we're talking about this. It's big, but sometimes it gets ignored. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we take it for granted. If you don't have elevated levels of anxiety, you don't realize what other people are going through. And am I hearing that right? Even since COVID, which, we're a number of years out of it, that anxiety elevated during COVID and the elevation levels are still floating up there high?
Oh, absolutely. I think that anxiety levels across the board are heightened for a number of different reasons. And I think across age ranges as well. It seems to be something that presents itself, I think, in most people. I think the majority of us can relate to feeling anxious about something. And I think that situational anxiety is a little bit more manageable and a lot more common. It's when that situational anxiety becomes a daily anxiety, or, we're struggling to deal with decision making or stress management. There's a variety of different anxieties. There's, generalized anxiety disorder where we're kind of anxious about almost everything. Then there's, specific phobias, fear of throwing up, fear of going out in public, fear of elevators, fear of heights. Then there's, our separation anxieties. So there's definitely a big gamut that goes underneath the umbrella of anxiety.
We all suffer from it in some shape and form, right?
I would say so. I mean, I don't know if it's diagnosable in everybody, but I really haven't come across or known of anybody that hasn't at some point in their life felt anxious. And I think when it gets to be out of control, where it starts to either alter our decision making or prevent us from decision making, where it becomes problematic, as well as being able to leave the house or accomplishing tasks, or for kids going to school, leaving their parents, the separation piece of it. So I think that, anxiety just is such a big topic, and there are some really basic coping skills that I think are really helpful for people when it comes to managing their anxiety.
I want to get to those, if we may, in just a moment,
Okay.
but wonder also, is anxiety good for us in some situations? For example, let's say you're a sports star and big game coming up. You got a little anxiety there. There's a lot of riding on the line, a lot of money, a lot of prestige, et cetera, et cetera. You got some anxiety, but that can help fuel you to perform better, I would think. Would that be if, anxiety can be good in those situations?
I think that, whenever our endorphins are triggered and we're heightened with all of, everything that's going on, that the internal stimuli, absolutely. I think that helps us to perform or to overcome or to overachieve some things. It's when that negative talk comes in and overpowers the benefits of using, that internal stimuli that we have, then that's when it becomes problematic.
Can I share a situational anxiety situation that
Yes.
I've had?
Okay.
I don't know if I ever shared this with you, that I was afraid of blood tests
Okay.
for years.
Yeah, that's a common one.
Right? Years. And it just kept getting elevated to the point where, just a routine blood test, once a year, whatever. I would have it scheduled. And then the day before I would go online, I'm like, let me just I'll make it for next week. I got time. And next week come along, well, I'm really busy. Let me change that up again, put it off again. And when I would go, I'd be worried. What am I worried about? What if I pass out? What if I become queasy? What if? There was, even after all that. Then there was one situation where I went to have blood drawn, routine test. Phlebotomist didn't take the band off my arm. She's talking with a coworker. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I want to get out of here. I did my thing. I made it.
Uh-huh.
She releases the pressure, and I thought I was going to pass out at that point, which I guess is kind of normal. I did not. It was all good. Fast forward to the past year. Not even kidding. The past year, I somehow reframed it in my mind where I say to myself, I'm getting information that's important for me. I'm doing something for myself proactively about my health. And by thinking that and then, calming down, talking to the phlebotomist, having conversations, whatever, I'm at the point right now where you just poke me 100 times. I don't even, it doesn't even, it's gone. I don't even think about it. Side note, I had some health issues about 5 months ago-ish. I got biopsy in my neck, like 6 needles in 5 minutes. And I was almost laughing, like, what am I going to feel, before they numb me up and all of that. So I bring this up. It's not about me, but I wanted to share. Is that kind of what happens if we can reframe it, like the mindset, and then it doesn't bother us so much anymore?
So yeah, absolutely. That is one of the best coping skills that we can do, is that thought restructuring. So it's challenging the negative thoughts and trying to get to the validity of it,
Yep.
and then countering it with either the positives or the knowledge that we're gaining or the outcome of it, or alternative ways of looking at it. That definitely, cognitive behavioral therapy. I mean, that's CBT, right? That's the cornerstone of the majority of the therapies that we get, that we use, is just that really getting in and restructuring and changing how the brain is thinking and what are the perceptions, and challenging them, because sometimes we're afraid of something that hasn't really ever happened, and just that fear of it possibly happening, and then asking just those questions exactly. And that's exactly the advice that I give my clients, is let's make a list. What are we afraid of? What is the worst thing that's going to happen? Have we ever come up across a situation like that in the past? What have we done in those situations? Success stories. That's a big one that I've used when I've worked with teenagers, because they're on their phone a lot. And so I'll have them do a success log and put it in the notes of their phone, and just to be able to every day go back and see what success did they have and how can we expand upon it. And so that kind of helps us with that forward movement. But it also is good when we feel stuck, because then we can go back and we can look and we can say, oh, well, I've, survived this, or I was able to get my blood drawn last week. So going to the dentist this week and getting a needle might not be as bad if we're, kind of like talking through the things that we've already overcome. So absolutely, that's one of the best coping skills, that, combined with deep breathing, just the need to re-regulate our body.
Well, there's another one right there, the whole breathing thing. And we talked about that before. But it seems like anxiety comes from fear and future. Fear and future. Would you say that that's the two major recipes for anxiety?
Absolutely. Fear of the unknown, fear of what they think could happen, fear of what they've already experienced has happened, rehappening again. So that fear can encompass just such a variety of different situations, for sure. And then sometimes the fear is just the what if. We kind of get stuck into that perseveration. And, once we start falling down that rabbit hole, sometimes it's really hard for us to stop and be able to kind of put the brakes on and realize that, we have the skills to climb back out of it. So teaching people how to identify when that internal trigger is happening can stop us from going down that rabbit hole. So sometimes just the acknowledgement of it, or even the insight of what are our triggers. And sometimes trigger work is just the foundation work that we do in therapy, is what are the things that trigger us? Because once we can identify that, then we can figure out, why is that a triggering event? And then what happens from there? And then kind of tailor fit specifically what types of coping skills are going to help us with that.
What is the difference between anxiety and a phobia, or are they the same?
So a phobia is an anxiety, but a phobia is a specific anxiety. So we're afraid of something specific. We have a fear of going to the doctor. We have a fear of going outside. We have a fear of throwing up. We have a fear of other people throwing up. We have fears of heights. Those are specific phobias. And those are actually, I think, if I'm correct, I think 12% of our population has a specific type of phobia,
Hmm.
whereas generalized anxiety disorder is more anxious about lots of different things without being fixated or one specific thing that we're anxious about. But all of the underlying kind of root of all of those phobias is anxiety. I mean, that's what we're experiencing is some sort of dysregulation in our body. Our amygdala gets activated and it enlarges, and that's what kind of sends off all of this, these fearful things inside of our brain. And what happens is the brain and the body, they kind of talk to each other. So the information comes in, and we have, say we're afraid of heights, and we know that we have to crawl up onto this ladder, and the thought of that, so it comes into our brain and we're thinking about it and we're like, oh wow, that's really making me feel super anxious. Well, what happens when our brain identifies an anxiety or an anxious situation is our body starts to respond. Our hands start sweating, our heart starts racing, we get butterflies in our stomach. So then what happens, and then it goes back up to the brain. Well, there's the validations. Now the brain's like, oh, okay, something really is going on because now the body's responding. So now the brain's been reinforced. So now the brain activates and reinforces the body, and round and round and round it goes. So we have to be able to stop that negativity from going from the brain to the body, because we just become very amped up. And that's when panic attacks we start having. And
Mm.
we're having a hard time breathing, and we feel like we're having a heart attack. And I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack, but you feel like you're having a heart attack. I mean, that's a genuine, real experience. And those can just come out of nowhere.
I can't even imagine.
Mm.
Maybe I've had a minor panic attack in the past, but I just can't imagine that feeling of hopelessness. Like I just can't. It's like swimming in the ocean with all the waves, and I got nothing to grab onto. Wow.
Ah.
What's the first step? You have anxiety. It
Mhm.
presents itself. Is it breathing? Is that really let's start there. I don't know. You tell me.
What do you mean? Is breathing meaning when you're having a panic attack?
Let's go
Is
anxiety. So
okay.
you have a situation coming up and you're starting to feel anxiety. We talked about breathing before. I'm just wondering, is that the first step, or where would we start if we had
I
it?
would say identification is the first step, because
Okay.
knowledge is power. So if we don't know what we're anxious about, it's going to be really difficult for us to breathe through anything, because if we just have this black hole of anxiety and we haven't identified what a specific topic is. So for me, the first part would be the identification of what is it that we're feeling anxious about. And then I always encourage, let's write it down. Let's write down what it is that we're feeling anxious about. And then from there, we can kind of titrate down into, have we had that experience before? Is this, now we're going to challenge what is that anxious thought? And then once we challenge it, is it a real or is it a perceived?
Hmm.
Because if it's real, then we're going to triage that a little bit differently. Then we're going to start with the problem solving in a way that's going to help us to work through this real anxious moment. If it's a perceived anxious moment, then we're going to handle that just a little bit differently, because then we're going to challenge that. How do we know that that's happening? What is the likelihood of that happening? How real is that's going to happen? So we kind of are going to attach or attack each situation just a little bit differently depending on the reality of the situation. But number one is just identifying what it is, and that goes back to knowing what are your triggers. What are the things inside of you that make you feel really anxious, or situations that make you feel anxious? And it's not about avoiding them, it's about working through them.
Can you give an example of real anxiety or perceived situations?
Hmm. So real anxiety would be, so if I am anxious about driving in the city, And I'm anxious about that because there's a lot of cars. I'm not a super experienced driver, and I'm afraid that I might get into a car accident. So those are real probabilities. Driving
Sure.
in the city is not easy, and sometimes there's a lot of other traffic that's around, and you're going to get anxious about that.
And by
So,
the way, I can relate. Not that I think I have anxiety, but I prefer not to if I can. Like New York
mm,
City, if I can get an Uber, whatever, it just
yeah,
makes it easier. But I get it. Like I don't want the pressure. Oh, one way street. Well, man, I'm like, I'd
right.
rather not if
Right.
I can
And
avoid it.
I'm with you on that one, by the way. If I don't know where I'm going, because
Yeah,
you know what, I'll tell you what, geography is just not my strong suit. So
yeah.
I get lost going around the corner. So I prefer to just know where I'm going at all
I
times.
want to make the experience fun. That's not fun for me.
No,
You know,
getting lost, going down one-way streets, people blowing their horns at them. I have anxiety just thinking about it.
And then, oh my gosh, what's next? Where am I going to park? Now I got to find parking. Where's the parking garage? Oh, I just passed it. It's one way street. Got to go all the way around. Like, meh,
Am
meh.
I going to be late? I don't want to be late. That's a pet peeve of mine. I can't be late. So,
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
always going to be a half an hour early in the event that that happens. So, I mean, so those are real anxiety things. Those are things that really happen.
Sure.
A perceived anxiety is something that's really unlikely is going to happen. It's something that, it's kind of just almost like a hypothesis in your brain. And, it's something that's pretty far-fetched, but you're just anxious about it happening, or something that's just not happened to you before. Like let's take your getting your blood draw, for example. So had you ever had a negative experience getting your blood drawn that would cause you to be fearful or anxious about that?
Not really. I mean, aside from the person leaving the band on, and that could be just me thinking that, oh, that's why I felt queasy. But then again, my blood pressure is probably so elevated from the anxiety that that's why I felt that way. So,
Right.
answer, never had an issue, never had a problem. No reason to believe that I am going to pass out. or,
Mhm.
no evidence to support why we'd even worry about this.
Right. So that's more of a perceived anxiety
Sure.
because that's something that I don't want to use the word creating, but it's definitely something that you haven't had a lived or learned experience of, but
Right.
something that could happen. It's probably a little unlikely if you've had a cracker and some ginger ale and you're prepared for your blood draw that you're not gonna really pass out.
Hmm. And same thing, I guess, with flying. A lot of people have anxiety with that. I don't know if that's also a phobia, but, in terms of perceived, so many thousands of flights every single day. Very, very, very rare that anything happens based on the number of flights versus, an accident.
Mhm.
They say it's flying safer than driving. That's a perceived situation, I would imagine, but there's a lot going
So
on.
if we're talking about the plane crashing,
Right.
yes. So there's other types of anxieties that go along with flying. So it's being trapped in a plane. It's that feeling of helplessness. It's
Yeah.
that feeling of hopelessness. It's not being able to get up when you want to get up. It's that feeling of trapped.
Mm.
So there are so many other anxieties that can go
This
along
is,
with
thank
flying.
you for bringing that up because there are, claustrophobia. What if I have to go to the bathroom and the pilot says, everybody take your seat? Well, I got to go to the bathroom. There's a lot going on there. So, yeah, I see that.
Right, right. So there's so many other, examples of different types of anxiety that are exhibited with, flying or with planes or, kind of everything that goes around that. So that would be the first suggestion that I would take is trying to identify what it is that I'm feeling anxious about. So that's easier said than done. That's easy if you have a specific phobia or you have a specific thing that you're anxious about. But if you have generalized anxiety and every day you're walking around just in this heightened state, that's a little bit more difficult to detangle and to try to treat because there isn't anything specific. There are some people who are always just anxious and they are always on high alert.
Mm.
And so everything to them feels scary and feels, like they can't achieve it. And so for individuals who are suffering from that kind of generalized anxiety, they may go through every day, all day, just in this really anxious state of second guessing themselves, not being able to make decisions,
Mm.
not feeling good about the way that they're presenting or not feeling good about their accomplishments. feeling like nothing's ever good enough. And then, of course, we can, jump right into the OCD stuff, the obsessive compulsive stuff, which is, an underlying anxiety disorder as well. So many different avenues that it goes through. But really being able to regulate your body is really important, and understanding your body, because that's where you're going to feel it. You may not identify the thought, but you're going to identify the sensation in your body. And that's where it's really important to be able to say, something feels a little bit off. I'm feeling not myself right now. And then just taking a minute to just breathe through it and doing some deep breathing and identifying, what is it that I'm feeling anxious about? And then go through the list, right? Is it a real threat? Is it a perceived threat? What are my coping skills? What have I, achieved before? Some people take medication, for anxiety, because their daily anxiety is just not manageable. And even with therapy and even with the coping skills, they're just operating in this heightened state where chemically there's an imbalance. And that could be for a variety of different reasons. It could be genetic. It could be just from the brain being in an anxious state all the time. So that there's a variety of different ways in treating anxiety, but I think it's just such an important topic to talk about because it's so impactful.
It controls and/or ruins the lives of many people. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, think about how many people will not attempt something out of fear of something negative happening, and how much that holds us back in our own individual personal successes. That's really important for us to really kind of weigh in and say, public speaking for me is not something I've ever been comfortable with. And so I cannot tell you the amount of speaking engagements I have declined because the thought of getting up in front of a large audience of people, for me, it feels debilitating. It's like, oh my God, I can't imagine being able, and the fear, I've never had anything negative happen when I've given a speech. It's just getting up in front of all of these people. And, I did some EMDR on that one time, and it was really kind of crazy what the end result came out of, where the fear of speaking came from.
I'm intrigued here. This is new for me. Were you able to identify where the fear came from?
Sure. Yeah,
the EMDR?
absolutely.
Really? I didn't know that would present like that.
Yeah, so with EMDR, you can take almost any situation, and through the eye movement, part of it, your brain just completely takes over and just will just present things to you in your subconscious that you just really could not have imagined. And so
I'm blown away. I had no idea that was possible. I've done hypnotherapy. In fact, I had a hypnotherapy session last week, and
yeah.
no major revelations except it was a timeline regression. No, at past life regression. Never did it before. Figured I'd try it. Very interesting.
Yes.
But I never knew that EMDR can give you answers from your subconscious. I call it connecting the dots. Why do we do what we do now? It's connected to something from the past, i.e., maybe your childhood. More reason why EMDR is so impactful.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it. I talk about it all the time. But between that and Flash, those are just some really great
Cool.
coping skills. But yeah, no, I was taking the training for myself as the student during the EMDR, and we were practicing on each other, and I was like, oh, I had this thing I had to do, this speech that I had to do, and I was like, oh, well, we'll do, yeah, sure, okay, we'll do public speaking for me. And within, I don't even know, I mean, it was very, very early into the EMDR session. It just took me to a whole different place, because you're almost like in a trance. Like, you're not really thinking about what you're saying, because you're following the eye movements and your subconscious is doing what it needs to do to kind of process it. And so for me, like, the tears and the floodgate, and it just took me down this rabbit hole of, and I mean, I've been, I've talked a lot in the podcast before about just having a pretty significant childhood trauma. And so just, growing up, always being put down, or always being told that you're not good enough, or that goes along with the emotionally verbal abuse of things, and you start to question yourself. I would have never identified that with with my, anxiety around public speaking. So I just, for me, that was kind of like an attachment that I had not expected to see. I didn't expect them to correlate with each other.
Wow.
And so that was important for me. I mean, I'm certainly not raising my hand to jump up and do public speaks anytime soon, but it has helped me to understand where it was coming from because it didn't make any sense to me before. And knowledge is power. Once we understand why we're experiencing something, then we can work on detangling and countering all of that negative self-talk that you have just really adapted over the years.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Pretty amazing. And, the
It
public speaking thing I've had to do throughout my career, this, that. One of my biggest fears was screwing things up, like somebody's name.
Right.
And,
Yes.
technical issues can present and you kind of roll with it, and have fun with it if you have to. But messing up somebody's name, I've always had a block with that and just got better. You just say the name slower. You can't come up with different ways. And by the way, if you think you're going to screw it up, you're going to screw it up.
You're going to screw it up. Right. And just kind of go with it. I mean, I used to, prior to being a therapist, I was a database analyst, and I used to train the engineers for the company that I worked for. And they used to fly them from all different countries to come, and I would train them on their software. And so inevitably, every morning before I would go in and do the training, I'd go into the bathroom, I'd throw up, I'd brush my teeth, I'd go in, I'd do
Wow.
it never got any better.
And what was your fear in that? I mean, you're not speaking to a group, or were you?
No, I was. So there was a group of men who were all PhD level, like geniuses, basically. And I mean, and I was training them on how to use the software for them to then in turn sell a specific software. So, but was part of the development of it. So it's not like I didn't know the software inside and out.
That's the other part of all of this. And thank you for saying that. Even if it comes down to public speaking about mental health challenges, nobody knows it better than you.
Yeah.
But if you have a fear, that gets in the way of everything you know.
Right. Exactly. And so it's identifying that, working through it, using your coping skills, doing your deep breathing. But the mind is interesting, and every experience that we've ever had carries forward into some experience that we have today. So that's why I'm such a big advocate of knowledge being power, and understanding the why is so important, because then we can have that forward movement.
I just learned that EMDR can bring you back to why we do certain things. Had no idea. I thought it just, I don't know, you say the word cures you, but it helps move your life forward. But I didn't know that it helps you to connect why you do what you do. Whoa. Yeah. You learn.
I know it's pretty amazing. It's obviously I talk about it a lot. It's a great therapeutic tool, and there are other ways to get to the why as well, without specifically just using EMDR, because I know that's a newer technology, and not a lot of people are trained in it, or are interested in doing it. But I've not done the hypnotherapy before. I have heard of it.
Oh yes, fun.
Is it? Yeah.
It is. And the first time I ever had it, because we always talk about it goes back to your childhood, I just said, take me back to my childhood. That's where I want to go. Let's go. And it wasn't that I didn't get like major aha moments, but I saw, if I were to think of my childhood and good or bad moments, whatever, I could see them right now, but this brought them with so much more clarity and even more layers of detail, which also brought clues as to why, I was challenged by certain things from back then. It's super cool. It really is. Just another modality.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. I've not done it before.
I would love you to try it, only because you run deep in all of this, and to get your feedback on what you thought about it.
I'll have to look into. So I don't think I know of anybody that does hypnotherapy. So I'll have to look into that and see if I can get a session before one of our podcasts. It'd be good feedback for you. I'd be curious what comes up.
I didn't know you had a technical background either.
Yes.
So that, adds even more validity to what you do, because you look at things, I want to think through a data-driven view and even a scientific view of all of this. I had no idea that was what you did before you do what you do now.
Oh yeah, for about 15 years I did
wow.
development and database analyst. Yep. I like puzzles. I like to.
This is why you're amazing at what you do, because we're all a puzzle and you help people
Yeah.
figure out the pieces of the puzzle, or maybe why they're misaligned. You can work with anybody, anywhere, you and your team, virtually. How do we find you?
Newbeginningswc.com is our website. We have referrals right on the page that you can make, or you could call the main office at 508-754-1141.
Always great talking with you. As you said before, knowledge is power. And you gave me and others lots of knowledge, even about EMDR, and just even better than I thought. And I've never tried that, so that's next for me.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
perfect. There you go.
Very cool.
I can do some EMDR for you after.
If I could do hypnotherapy, I'd trade you, but I can't.
There you go. I think that'd be a great trade-off.
Yeah, right? Sherri Ann, thank you so much for today. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.